Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Brackett, and welcome to the show. Welcome to another amazing episode of We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only place where you come to learn how to take apartment buildings and turn them into amazing community. I have here another great guest. His name is Chris Miles. So Chris Miles, the cash flow expert, as he's known as, and the anti-financial advisor, is a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to get their money working for them today. So he's an author, podcast host of the Chris Miles Money Show, and has been featured in U.S. News, CNN Money, Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Bigger Pockets. Has a proven reputation with his company, Money Ripples, getting clients fast financial results. In fact, Chris has increased the personal cash flow of his clients by about $300 million in the last 12 years. Okay, awesome, man. So let's talk a little bit about that. I appreciate you being on the show. So Chris, really quickly, how in the world did you get into this space?
Not intentionally. My whole purpose was I went to college majoring in sociology, thought I was going to go into business consulting. But I thought if I was going to go into business consulting, I should have real life business experience. So I dropped out of school really with one class before my bachelor's, thought I'd just take a year off, kind of get that real life experience. So then when I go back and get my MBA and have more experience than most people do when they get their MBAs and such. Well, I dropped out. I was trying to figure out what business to do. And the first one that came up that was semi interesting was becoming a financial advisor. Little did I know they take anybody that has a heartbeat and can pass a test with at least 70%, which I can do. And so, sadly, it did take me 5 times to take that test to get from 69% to 71, but I did it.
Was that Series 7?
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? But I'm a slow learner, I guess. But I started doing that business and loved it. But here's the thing: after several years in that business, and I've been in this industry for 20 years now, but I was there for 4 years. I realized people weren't becoming financially free. Because I remember one of my friends was a real estate investor. He called me out on my bull. He just said, "Chris, how many of your clients are actually financially free where they don't worry about money?" I said, "Well, not worrying about money, zero, because they all worry about money, right? Especially when they watch CNN, then they think the sky is falling." And I said, "Well, none of them." He said, "Well, good job, Chris. Way to help no one." And some of these people, by the way, also had 20 years of advice.
That's funny, man. Good
They
job, Chris. Way to help no one,
I
huh?
know, seriously. I even inherited clients from 20 years of previous financial advisors, and they were still in the same place. So they
Wow.
weren't financially free either.
Wow.
And then he asked me the big bomb. He said, "Now, how about of you guys as financial advisors? Because if anybody has this figured out, it should be you. So
Right.
how many of you guys are financially independent, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these mutual funds?" And as I thought about it, I said, "Well, I know guys have been in this office since the late 1970s, and they're still working here. I would have to say zero." And he said, "There's your problem." I was like, "Well, give me the answer then if you're so smart."
Hey,
And he's
man.
like, "I'm not gonna give you the answer." He's like, "You just got to an argue with me that real estate sucks and stocks are better." I'm like, "Listen, okay, I'm open. Give it to me." And so he did. I started listening to this local radio show on AM Talk Radio with these real estate investors talking about, cash flow and all the stuff that Kiyosaki had read about, but they're actually trying to do it. And then, hearing different stuff, I realized all the stuff I was teaching with financial advising doesn't work. And
Yeah.
so I got this point. I said, either I keep teaching, being a financial advisor, even though I'm at the
Taught to
height
be
of
the
my
salesman
business.
for Wall Street, man.
Yeah, it's like either I work for Wall Street, but I know I'm out of integrity, or I quit. And so I quit. I said I'll be a mortgage broker because it was 2006. It was easy to be a mortgage broker back then. And then I'll just teach ballroom dancing on the side. And that's what I did. But once I started to learn these things, I was able to become financially independent myself later that year. Then, of course, the recession hit, and I was like egotistical, 29, 30-year old that thought I could do anything. I have the Midas touch, so I'll go and gamble with my real estate a little bit more, try to hit these home runs, and then I ended up losing big. I actually went over $1 million in debt during the recession and didn't file for bankruptcy, but I had to dig my way back out before I finally became financially independent the second time at the end of 2016. And that time, much wiser by the time I was 39, almost 40.
With a little bit of humility sauce, huh?
That's right. A lot of humble pie there.
Awesome, man. Hey, okay, but so I really appreciate the background. I'm gonna fast forward to, I know you made a comment here that you were able to become financially independent twice. All
Mhm.
right. So I think there are gonna be some nuggets in there. So can you unpack that a little bit? What happened the first time? And then we'll get into the second.
Yeah, the first time was really easy because I only had 2 young kids. I have now a blended family of 8 kids currently. So, my wife has 2, I have 6.
Must be a
So we
busy
created
one.
this massive Brady bunch, right? So I had 2 young kids and we were living really cheap, and so I only needed 3,500 bucks a month to be financially independent. And so, I did that pretty early on with not a lot of money, but I was able to do it, especially when we were doing, like, things with real estate. I was even doing things, like, on the mortgage side, where I stopped doing the mortgages. I just referred the business and got paid residual income from that, and which was a complete mind blower. I didn't even think about it till one of my millionaire friends said, "Why don't you just find somebody else to do all the work for you, and you just send them people?" So I was a connector. I'm getting paid referral fees. I'm like, wow, I was mortgage licensed, but I didn't have to do any of the work. I thought this is amazing. This is so easy. So between that and doing real estate, it didn't take long. It took a matter of months where I was like, wait a minute, I'm making 4 or 5 grand a month, maybe working a couple hours a week. This is before Tim Ferriss had his 4 hour work week. I was
Right,
living it,
right, right, right.
it was a big epiphany change because remember, my goal as a financial advisor was always save and save and save, accumulate a lot of money so that you would live on less than the interest. Because everybody talks about the 4% rule, right? That you can live on 4% of whatever you've saved up in your retirement accounts. But the truth is, and even I was teaching it back then, it shouldn't be more than 2 or 3%. And even the Wall Street Journal agreed with me finally just last October. They said you should not be pulling out more than 3% of your portfolio. So think about it. This is what I was thinking too. I was thinking 3% back then. I was like, well, if I just save up $2 million by the time I'm 40, just be dirt cheap and just save and save and save and save and squirrel away money and hopefully build up enough in those mutual funds and hopefully the market doesn't tank in the meantime. I could be 40 years old, have $2 million and live on 60,000 a year. Because back then, 60,000 a year seemed like amazing lifestyle, right?
Right,
Not
right.
anymore. Now you're like, oh, I'm just barely above poverty.
Yeah, yeah, with inflation, so
Yep, especially
yeah,
with inflation.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that cash flow mindset, switching that mindset was the big epiphany for me of, wait a minute, if I have 100,000 bucks, I'm not living on $3,000 a year, right? I have 100,000 bucks. What if that pays me 10%? Even if it's in like a syndication or even if it's in a rental property or is not on the West Coast here, but more out east, I can make more like 10, 12% on a rental property, cash on cash return and not manage it. So if I could do that, holy cow, now I'm making like 800 to 1,000 bucks a month versus just 3,000 a year, right?
100%.
It's a big difference.
I get it, man. So, here's what's really interesting, right? Where does this crap come from? I mean, you talked about being educated and trained, right? So you made the comment that, hey, I was teaching this stuff. Man, where does this crap come from? I mean, I know the industry has created a market for this, but
Mhm.
when you stepped into that organization, I mean, what was the training like? I mean, what is the culture, the training? Because now you think about it, and so one of my clients, one of my long-term partners,
Mhm.
has a financial advisor, and I actually told him to get one, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, because he was way too busy, man, and really he needed someone to help him organize all the stuff that he now had, right? All the different
Mhm.
assets that he now had, and he was too busy to do that. And I said, look, you need someone who can help you organize, all your assets, help you put this on, a personal financial statement, a balance sheet. You can't grow what
Yeah.
you don't know you have, right? I mean, you just can't do that.
Mhm.
So that was the driver. But then, financial advisor, man, which is doing it. They're doing their job, right? CFP doing their
Mhm.
job, trying to understand all the assets, and so they're asking me all these questions. We get on this conference call, man. I'm just amazed, right? Because the industry will like ingrain this mindset in them, and it's so one-sided. It's so one-sided, right? I mean, there's nothing beyond stocks and bonds. So even if it's the worst option available at that time, and of course whole life insurance, like let's sell everybody the whole life insurance and into stocks and bonds, because you know what,
Mhm.
this is like the best thing for you. Where does this crap come from, man?
Man, well, it comes from the financial industry, like you said. I mean, when you think about financial advisors, they don't really work for clients, and they're not financial experts. Don't get that mistaken thinking that financial advisors are financial experts.
Well, I know
They
that.
are financial salespeople, period. Although well intentioned, and they want to help people because I was that way, right? I wanted to help people too. I mean, my motivation was thinking of my dad who said he would work until he died. I thought, well, if I can even give him 1 year of his life back, would that be worth it? But the thing is, I was really trained to be a salesperson.
Right.
Specifically, I call financial advice Mexican food, right? Think about Mexican food. Although I love it with a passion. The problem with Mexican food is this: what's in a taco? You got meat, beans, lettuce, tomatoes, salsa, right? What's in a burrito? Meat, beans, lettuce, tomatoes, cheese, salsa. I mean, it's all the same crap. Fajitas, tostadas, doesn't matter. They just have different packaging, same
Right.
crap. That's what financial advising is, the same ingredients. It's all mutual funds or insurance, just like you said.
Yeah.
That's all you're trained to do. You're
Variable
just
whole
trained
life.
in different variations of it. And that's
And
the
I
problem.
think that's what most people don't understand, right? I mean, the advisor is really an employee of the insurance company or the advisory firm, and ultimately they're
Mhm.
selling their products, especially if they're a captive agent, which most of them are, even though they'll tell you they're not. And so ultimately, they're representing the interest of the very company
That's
that they're
right.
working for. It's a total conflict, man. It's a total conflict of interest. There's really total conflict.
And I didn't think that was the case. It became more apparent about 3 years in, about 2005, right? I mean, it's after Y2K and things started to come back again. I remember there was a financial trainer that came in to teach us, and he said, and it was really teaching on a new product because that's really what it is. You're just trained on new products.
Right.
And he was talking about this index product and why this could be good. And so he would illustrate. He said, "Hey, if you have $10,000, you lose 50%. What do you have?" We all say 5,000 bucks because we're geniuses, right? And then he said, "All right, now what rate of return do you need to get back up to 10,000?" And we all said 50% because again, we're not geniuses. And he said, "No, it's not 50% because if you make 50% on 5,000, you only got up to 7,500 bucks." He's like, "You need 100% rate of return." He's like, "What's the average?" And so he says, minus 50, and just going back to our grade school average math, right?
Right.
Minus 50 plus a 100 is 50 divided by 2 years is 25% average return. And we were blown by that concept. We're just like, what? And we're like, wait a minute, we talk about averages all the time. He's like, yeah. He's like, so here's an index product which doesn't lose money, yada, 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 right? Talking about this indexed annuity and stuff. Well, I cornered him out in the parking lot. I said, "Listen, we've been doing some talking in the office, and we looked at 1995 to 2005. Despite the roaring 90s, we would have all had more money had we not had money in the market and just went with these indexed things that didn't lose money." And he said, "Yeah, that's true, but you're in your late 20s. You're young. You can take the risk by doing those longer term gambles." And at that moment, I knew I was like, "This guy's full of crap. I'm just a salesman in a suit."
Man,
Like
look,
he's just
look, this is the same crap that's being peddled in every single financial organization out there that has a license, a broker dealer that has a license to sell
Mhm,
securities, right? And even think of the word
that's
security.
right.
Really, security, that's a marketing term. Who even came up with
It
that?
is.
Is it really secure? Is it really more
Not
secure
at
than
all.
other investments out there? No, but it's a marketing term, right?
Uh-huh.
Security, stocks and bonds, man. And so it's really interesting to me, and we're
Mhm.
still having conversations around the same thing. What that tells me is the Wall Street machine is so freaking strong, man, and there is just so much that goes into selling or really creating rather a market, maybe is a better word to put it,
Mhm.
right? To selling these products because they're products. It's fascinating to me because
Yeah.
these are the same conversations, man, that I've heard 20, 15, 20 years ago, even when I was a
Mhm.
kid. It's just incredible. It's incredible, man.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, this is why Susie Orman got her licenses pulled at one point, you know? Like, she gets paid off all the time for this kind of stuff. This is why all the talking heads, they all support the same dialogue like you're talking about. This really the same message of just squirrel your money away, save it forever, pay off all your debt because that's what the banks want you to do, not for their best interest because they never pay off their debt. If they did, you would never have a savings account because that's debt to them. I mean, all this stuff that they tell you to do is just to work within their system where they make consistent cash flow. I mean, think about the whole term. I was going to go with the insurance term there, but that's a different one. High risk creates high returns, right? High risk creates high returns. The definition of risk from a financial advisor standpoint has always been chance of loss. So when did a 90% chance of losing become a 90% chance of winning? I
It's
don't have to be a
marketing,
genius
man.
to realize that doesn't add up to 100%,
Yeah.
right? 90% chance of losing is a 10% chance of winning. High risk does not create high returns. And you know this, especially if you're in apartments. Like the best way to get the best return is to ensure you underwrite it well, that you make sure that you take all those risks out as much as you can, mitigate those risks to as close to zero as you possibly can. And that's what ensures you have wealth. But they're telling us to gamble, but they
Yeah.
won't do the
So
same thing in
that
return. Those companies, they'll just take that money and they just take your constant fees. They're taking constant cash flow. They're taking your fees out of your money, letting you gamble your money in the markets while they don't. They just take that constant fee from you, whether you make money or not.
okay.
That's what you should be doing.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, man. I totally get it. So really interesting, right? You talk about this whole concept of risk adjusted return,
Mhm.
right? What is that? If you put 10 people in a room and you ask them the same question, they would give you 10 different answers. 10 different answers.
Absolutely.
So how do you explain that? The point there being is the number one way to make money is number one, not to lose any of it.
Yes,
Okay. That is
exactly.
the number one way to make money is to not lose any of it because your money compounds faster when you're not losing it, right? And
That's right.
so the big challenge is that Wall Street's message is totally in contradiction to that. And you said this
Mhm.
literally three times, right? You can ride out a market. You're young enough to take risks, right? I mean, you said it literally three times, but that's what's being sold out there, man.
It is.
Being sold out there, and it's been sold for so long that most people think it's okay to make an investment in the stock market, have your money fluctuate like crazy, right? Plus or
Mhm.
minus 10%, and that you're going to be good 10, 15, 20 years from now, assuming that you continue to ride that cycle out. It makes
Yeah.
totally illogical, but the message has been sold for so long in this country that it's like acceptable, right?
Yeah.
I think you'd have better luck, man, going to Vegas.
It's true. It's true. I mean, you have people talking about dollar cost averaging. You notice it's never a bad time to invest in the market because when the market goes up, they never tell you to stop buying, even though it's getting more expensive. But when it goes down, then all of a sudden the whole dollar cost averaging stuff starts coming out saying, oh, when it's going down, it's on sale. Buy more.
Right, right.
Well, if that's the case, we should all wait for crashes, buy only then, and the rest of the time just watch it go up and not buy anything because it's getting expensive, right?
Yeah, so I have a rule, man, and I never break this rule anymore. Okay,
Mhm.
anytime I'm seeking advice from an advisor, I always ask them for a personal financial statement. Always,
Yeah.
right? Because if you haven't done it yourself, why in the world am I going to seek advice from you and pay you for it? Why?
Oh, yeah.
Can you help me understand this? And I'm sharing this with the audience, right? Because, man, when it comes to the hard earned dollars that you've worked so hard to accumulate,
Mhm.
extremely important. And it's okay to want to verify what people have done to validate that what they're telling you, they actually have done it themselves. Because if they haven't done
That's
it
right.
themselves, what is the likelihood of them being able to do that for you? It's highly unlikely because
That's
human
right.
beings were just not that disciplined. I'm not gonna like I can't blow up my own money, manage my own money extremely poorly, but then tell you I'm gonna make you money? How does that even
Mhm.
work, man? It's illogical, but this is the kind of nonsense that's happening out there.
It's true. And I love that point. I mean, you really want somebody who's been there, not just been there and done that, but still doing it today, right? You never want a has been. It's like, oh, I did that once, but then they haven't been able to replicate it. If there's anything I've got from my pain that I had with, getting out of the rat race, getting back in the rat race, and then back out again, is that I was able to do it twice. And I did it from a -$1 million position. And so when I have people come to me, they're like, I'm starting from zero. Great. That's $1 million more than I had. So good job. You can do it too.
Okay, cool, man. So, Chris, the anti financial advisor. Okay, we're gonna start winding the show down, man. We're at the end of the show. So, what is some anti financial advice you can give our audience to start thinking about going against the grain to being successful, right? So, my
Yeah.
philosophy is if you want to build wealth, go in the opposite direction of the masses. So, top three pieces of advice, man, you can give our audience.
Get
Go.
your money out of prison. Number one, get your money out of prison. That means get your money out of savings, go actually use for you, right? To actually create money. You want your money to actually create money for you so you don't have to keep working so hard for money, right? So get it out of just sitting around the savings, get it out of the actual stock markets, we're not telling you to sell. I don't have a securities license since 2005. But if you're saying, hey, the market's been up 13 years in a row, which is never done in history since the 1800s, maybe it's time to cash in my chips, right? But could we do that somewhere else? Can I get the money away from the stock market, or at least capitalize my gains, maybe get into a safer place when the market corrects?
Such as?
And then third place is your home equity. Guaranteed you probably got equity in your house, maybe even your rental properties. I see so many people with rental properties are underperforming or bad return on equities. Hey, what if we can get that equity out? Get the money away from the markets, get away from your savings, and actually get it deployed that generates real, stable, predictable cash flow for you, so you can actually be out of the rat race where you work because you want to, not because you have to. And that's something that no financial advisor will tell you to do, because they're telling you to sock it away and put it in prison. I'm saying get it out of prison and get it to work for you, rather than having somebody else, you have to pay them to tell you to put it in the market that they have no control over.
Okay, cool. And so, where would you put that money?
Honestly, I love things like real estate. Now, it's different for everybody, but I mean, you can do a variety of things. I mean, you can do into actual rentals, but if you want to be passive, look more the turnkey route, not the I'm going to go buy it in my backyard kind of crap. But unless you want to be an active investor, and that's a whole part-time business in and of itself. You can actually go and do syndicated deals, like where you're investing in apartments or self-storage or commercial property. You could be buying and doing it with raw land, or even land like with oil. I mean, there's oil investments you can be doing. I even had one real estate investor says, I want to diversify away from real estate. And he ended up buying a franchise. He bought a laundromat. There's things you can do there. I mean, there's so many different ways you can invest your money that can actually start creating real returns right now versus waiting 30, 40,000 years for it to finally see if it pans out.
Awesome, man. Hey, bud, well, you've been a great guest. I want to thank you for being on. So, Chris, what is the one question that you have for me that you think could add some value to our audience, man?
Question I have for you?
Yeah.
Like, what's been your best investments outside of what financial advisors recommended?
For me, man, it's been real estate. I mean, I'm in real estate and in cash. And in notes. Those are the three: real estate, cash, and notes secured by First Trust Deeds.
See, I didn't even mention notes. I mean, you could definitely do notes.
That's what I do. Yeah. That's what it is. And businesses as well. So actually 2 of them now. I'm not going to go into detail on those because for a couple different reasons, but businesses as well, but they complement what we do. They complement our real estate businesses, and I think they make a lot of sense now. And I believe they're going to make a lot of sense 10 years from now. And so that's why I'm diversifying myself into those operations, but ultimately they complement what we do, right? I mean, they're a complement. So we'll see how they work out.
Well, the one thing we know, if you look at the Fortune 500 list, one thing they'll have in common is business, and they typically all have real estate, right? I mean, that's the one thing in common. You won't see any of them that says, I saved my way to billions in 401ks.
Yeah.
Bull. Never see it.
Yeah. No, exactly. This a little bit unique opportunity for me with these business ventures, but I think they're really good complements. And I think 10 years from now, man, I think they're going to still add some really good value to what we're doing. So we'll see how they work out. So again, thanks so much for being a part of this show. I want to thank you again for being on. You've been a tremendous guest. I want to wish you continued success, Chris. And take care, man. Have a good one, all right?
Appreciate you too. Thanks.
Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Brackett, bringing you things you can implement right away.